Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So I've done some more extensive testing on some of the companions, and mainly the Dedicated Squire and whether or not he's going to be still the best with regards to healing as a companion. I went and tested him against multiple different enemies. You can see here we're doing a test against these dummies and he can hit 3 of them. Made sure he would have combat advantage on them, and he can deal a whopping amount of damage due to his smite. He has this ability down here when he can smash a target and ignite them, meaning they will take radiant damage for 4 seconds, and this will be all the targets nearby as well. On top of that, he'll also heal while he's doing it. He also has a decent survivability with an extra 25% bonus chance to deflect, along with having a cleansing touch where he can heal people for 15% of their maximum hit points. This companion at the moment is a very good all-round companion for AoE fights and even some boss fights, those ones in particular where you take lots of damage over time. He's not good with regards to healing like big burst heals, but he'll heal those ticks over time. Let's say in the Vault of Stars in the last boss, when people are standing in those black holes or just taking reflected damage, he'll definitely help out with that, especially on a paladin where our heals lack that damage over time capabilities. Now I also went and tested out Cold Iron Warrior, the Black Ice Prospector, Regis and Xuna, and mainly focusing on AoE damage, how much damage they could deal against multiple targets. Same here in Dread Ring, we have 4 dummies, and most of the time you can get them positioned so that they'll have combat advantage against all 4 of them. You can see Regis here doing his Whirlwind of Blades, and he can hit all 4 dummies with that big burst. It's massive. He also has very nicely the benefit of being able to use that power as soon as you have him summoned. As soon as you have him summoned, he jumps through some enemies and he uses it. It can be a negative when you're against enemies which are not grouped up, and that way Xuna would just be better. As of right now, there doesn't seem to be any reduction in their effectiveness. However, there is something I figured out that the Black Ice Prospector along with the Cold Iron Warrior really lack within AoE, and the major drawback for them is that their power, their spinning steel on the Cold Iron Warrior, can hit up to only 5 enemies, and every time it hits more than 1 enemy, it will basically half the damage it does to everybody else. You can see that as a result here on this act log. You can see that the Cold Iron Warrior can deal up to about 150 maximum damage on a hit. And then we go and we can see when we have him attacking 2 dummies, he's only dealing about 75,000 maximum damage on a hit. That just shows that his effectiveness is considerably reduced when he's hitting more than 1 target. The Black Ice Prospector is exactly the same with its spinning pick attack, where he can again only hit up to 5 enemies, and every time he hits more than 1 enemy, he's dealing less and less damage to everybody. Now, that doesn't mean they aren't still pretty good within single target fights, since they will deal their maximum amount of spinning damage against that 1 target. However, I'm not sure if that's going to be the full extent of the nerfs that they did say in this blog here that they were going to implement to these certain companions. They did also mention they were going to reduce Xuna in her AoE effectiveness, and as of right now she can go and hit tons of those dummies just dashing around the place with her bloodbath, and we can see again here as a result on the act log that yeah, she can seriously kick ass, and these results are even not as much as she can do, since you can look at the flank percentage. It was very hard to make sure she had combat advantage against all of the dummies, so this is what we ended up with. Still a very considerable amount of damage. So we go back to this Dedicated Squire, which we shall be able to obtain from the new lockbox, which is going to be releasing in a few hours. Now, the actual amount of healing he can do is a decent chunk. The way I tested it out is I went to the elite area of Avernus, jumped into a pack of enemies, and yeah, the Dedicated Squire for the most part took the aggro since I wasn't attacking much, so he took a lot of damage. I made sure my health was most of the time not at full, so he could actually heal me all the time. Have a look at the amount of healing he dealt. You can see he has his smite, his cleansing touch, and you can kind of leave the regenerate out of the equation, since that's only going to affect himself, not your allies. The smite will affect everybody, and so will cleansing touch. That seconds if you're close enough to the target. For boss fights, that's usually not a problem. As for AoE fights, can be a bit more situational, whether or not you're close to the enemies that he's fighting or not. His smite, which doesn't depend on your maximum hit points, is about 21,000. That will depend on your stats. It'll probably be increased if your outgoing healing is increased. And then this other, like 14,000, 13,000 on its cleansing touch, will be based on how many hit points you have, and it's healing for a maximum of 15% of your maximum hit points over that 6 seconds. We got a huge chunk of hits there, and you can see he was nearly healing for 6 million just within 3 minutes of that fight. You can see again in this clip that we fought that elite boss guy, the Bone Devil. He managed to take out the Bone Devil by himself, doing nearly all of the damage. I barely did anything. That just shows he does have a considerable amount of damage. But I warn you, in the patch notes they have said they're aware of him dealing a lot of damage in AoE. Most likely we'll get a nerf within a week or two. As for the other companions, we can go and see actually what results we were getting. You can see with the Black Ice Prospector, he was only dealing about 29,000 encounter DPS. This was against 2 dummies with about 100% combat advantage on them. We can see the Cold Iron Warrior, this one being again against 2 targets, really not dealing any more damage. You can see his max hit was only 76,000, nearly 34,000 encounter DPS. Then we went to make sure that the Cold Iron Warrior was dealing still the same amount of damage and wasn't like nerfed. And yeah, we can see this is against 1 dummy and his maximum hit is about 153,000. That's where I can see that he's dealing less damage per hit when he has 2 targets than he is when he just has 1 target. It's basically halving it. And this was the Dedicated Squire, the heal just for me. You have the smite and the cleansing touch, and it was nearly 3 million heal there just on myself, and this can affect all party members. That's quite a lot. And this was the maximum amount of healing he was doing to himself and myself total. Nearly 6 million there. Then we went and we tested Regis. You can see he has 100% combat advantage. And again from this clip you can see he's attacking all 4 targets. And he can deal about 35,000 encounter DPS. This is very good. Let's say when you're in the Vault of Stars and you're in that forest where all of the enemies spawn around you. That's an excellent spot for Regis. Otherwise it's not really great, since he's going to be on the outside of the groups when you run up to them, and he generally won't hit a whole bunch of enemies. And finally we made a single target DPS check for the Dedicated Squire, and yeah, he's not dealing a lot of damage when he just has 1 target. Only about 16,000 encounter DPS. We tested Xuna, as you can see here, nearly 35,000 encounter DPS. Her flank was nowhere near at 100%, so you can nearly double this damage. She probably does about at least 45,000 encounter DPS if she had that combat advantage. I probably need to make a document to record all of these AoE damage companion tests, but they can be really situational. In some areas, Regis is going to be the absolute best. Other areas, Xuna is just going to beat everybody. But overall, Xuna just really triumphs over every other AoE damage companion at the moment because of her versatility. She doesn't care if the enemies are grouped up. She doesn't care if they're spread out. She'll always just jump between multiples of them. She doesn't even care if there's 1 target. She'll still do all her damage to that target. So hopefully this video has been somewhat insightful. I will go over when this lockbox drops the other companions in the pack. I don't have most of them currently right now, and I'm not really inclined to go buy them off the auction house when I can just obtain them pretty much for free by copying my keys over to the preview server and opening the boxes there. And then I can obtain all the companions. So I'll test them then later today, and we'll see how they rack up in single target and versus some of the best companions. So finally, I'd like to give a massive thank you to all of these channel members for helping me keep my channel going. And if I presented this well, consider leaving the video a like. And if you're new around here, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.